again with another level design tool video, the level design prototyping video. And what I want to talk about today is a engine called GB Studio. Now, why am I talking about GB Studio? So like the other video that we did that's going to be in this playlist about Twine, I like to use, we'll call them like smaller or concise game engines to try out different level design ideas. And sometimes those things turn into full games, and sometimes those things are simply a way to like get some ideas out and try to, do some stuff without fighting with a bigger engine like a Unity or an Unreal. So in this case, last time what we did was we created a game or a sort of like walkthrough of a theoretical space in the Twine game engine, which is a choose your own adventure thing where you're almost making like an interactive flowchart. But this time what I want to do is use a tool called GB Studio. And why are we using this tool? Even when you're making, a lot of people always ask like, do you work in 2D or 3D? Like they're fundamentally different ways of thinking. And they are in many respects in terms of, adding a Z-axis and thinking in terms of like being able to look around from a first or third person camera. But, ideas of gameplay can be translated pretty easily from one to the other. Understanding how ideas go from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions can really be core to, creating some like really good games. People that understand how to go from 2D to 3D are why, in the 90s, like some franchises made it to 3D from 2D, like Zelda or Metroid, and some didn't. Being able to break down your game in those terms is really important because, doing some stuff in 2D can give you a lot of tools to work with, even if you are eventually working in a 3D space. And a recent example, semi-recent, I guess, at this point, example of this is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, where they created an NES-style, prototype game before they moved into the full 3D space, and that let them feel out like how the world would be structured and what pacing might look like, how far apart things might be, or where puzzles and things should work. So you can build your own little world that can inform your ability to conceive of your bigger, more modern 3D world. Plus, I like making 2D games, so I like retro games. So why this engine though? Why don't we do this in Game Maker, or why don't we do this in something like Construct 2 or some of the other engines? Well, you can do that. Sorry, I'm getting some messages from work chat. So you can do that. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. The reason that I am focusing on this right now is that one, I'm actively using GB Studio. 2, I think it's really simple, and I also really like working in classic game constraints, simply because there's less to worry about. Because if you're working in something like a Game Maker, you might be tempted to do something that is perhaps more full color, and then you start getting into like actually developing visual assets. Here you're working in 4 colors, and it's a little more concise. So again, I really like it. The other reason I like it, and again, this doesn't have anything necessarily to do with prototyping, but I think it's just fun, is with GB Studio, what it's doing is it's working off of a base of the Game Boy development kit that people use to actually make homebrew Game Boy games. So you can actually create a usable Game Boy game with this. So, that's just another fun added extra of this, that you can actually create your own homebrew retro games. But in all seriousness, the other reason that I do this is that Game Boy Studio. So to give you some background, it's created by a developer named Chris Maltby, and it's a tool for. It started as a tool. It's like about 2 years old at this point, but it originally started as a tool for creating. We'll call it like retro RPG towns. So what you could do is you could, right out of the box, and can still right out of the box, create a space where you can walk around, you can talk to non-player characters or NPCs, you can, use simple, there's like a simple quest system that's like right out of the box available to you. There are like, they've done some simple work on like block pushing puzzles and things like that. And we're going to mostly stick to those functions just to get us started, to get you a tour of this engine. But, now its functionality has expanded to the point where, for example, the game I'm working on is a much more fully featured Zelda Link's Awakening style game. It also has platformer and point and click functions, but at the time of this recording, those aren't fully hashed out as much yet. That being said, all the things it does have out of the box, I think, is a powerful tool set for prototyping, quest-based, puzzle-based game worlds. And that's what we're going to stick to today. Whereas, again, other engines you might not be able to do so much like as a designer right out of the box, with those sort of more like social gameplay functions. So what I'm going to do, I actually, on my screen in front of me, I have my example project up, but I'm also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to build a new project, and then we can go from there. I'm also going to make the exact example project available on itch.io along with this video so that you can, get in there and dig and explore a little bit. So I've opened up my copy of GB Studio, and this is, I should mention, the beta of the 2.0 beta. So let me go, if I go to gbstudio.dev, how do you get this engine? If I go to gbstudio.dev, I can download on itch.io. It also has color functionality, but I'm not really going to do that. I'm going to stick to the monochromatic Game Boy palette because you can do color if you want, but there's plenty of documentation online. So if I scroll down, I can get GB Studio Beta 4. If you download now right here, I believe that might get you the non-beta version, but which is 1.2.1, but I'm going to go with 2.0. 1.2.1 is going to have all of these. It is going to have the like talking and quest stuff and things like that. And we're going to be working from the example project for version 1. I just, I'm using beta 4 of 2.0, so just FYI. So I'm going to go to my new project window, and I'm going to go new, and I'm going to call this GB Studio Tutorial. And then I'm going to, find a I'll do live tutorial because I know I haven't taught. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to go down to template. Now the template is going to give you, if you're in 2.0, you're going to get options of a sample project. Now that's going to have multiple different gameplay types, and you can do different gameplay types per scene. So you can do the Zelda Link's Awakening thing where you're like in a top-down dungeon and then you go down a ladder and then you're in a side scroller where you can jump on Mario enemies. You can do that. I'm not going to do that for the sake of ease of use and focus, but just know that that's there. Blank project is nothing. That's like, let's build it totally from scratch. I don't want to do that either. I'm going to use sample project GBS 1.0. And okay, I'm going to hit create, and it's going to appear on my other screen. So I'm going to bring it here. And what this gives us is it gives us a simple scene. I'm going to hit Control and plus, just like Photoshop, to zoom in. And you can see here, if I click this play button in the upper right hand corner, it's going to do this little build thing. But what it gives me is essentially a scene where it's going to show a logo, a title screen, and then once I hit start and select new game, it's going to take me to this field next to a duck pond. And then there's like other little houses and caves and stuff. There's also a little quest list. So right away, you know, we're working with a preconceived set. Again, think in terms of like, this is a way to make and test out simple, you know, like RPG towns, quest systems. And if you were to use this to like show somebody, all right, our game should feel kind of like this. You can do some of these like RPG-ish functions. You know, you could make a nice little zone for your game. And, you know, I can show you towards the end of this video what I have with my game Kudzu, which is a little more combat Zelda based. So it is ultimately really flexible to be able to do like both, you know, quest-based gameplay, but then also, you know, if you wanted to add enemies and more combat systems and things like that, you can do that. So what it's doing right now, I clicked this so that I would get it to load, to build out. And what it does is that opens up a Game Boy emulator. And, you know, if I press, the controls are arrow keys Z and X and shift and enter. So I'm going to go new game. And it fades in, and then I'm this little character here, and I can go up to things. Z is A and X is B. It says welcome to GB Studio. What's that guy looking at? So you can see you already have like sample NPCs. They do different behaviors like walking around. Have you seen my cat? Let's go find her cat. Spoiler alert, her cat's just up here. Meow. Let's go report back. We have seen your cat. He's by the house. Thank you. Okay. So then if I hit enter, aha, missing cat has been found. And I hit enter again. I don't think any select does anything, which is shift. But I can also do things like go inside a house, look at signs, things like that. So that's basically like the out-of-the-box functionality of GB Studio. So I'm in the build screen. If I go to this drop down in the upper left-hand corner, I will go to Game World, and then that will get me back to my level. So this is like what is out of the box. I'll explain what all this, you know, blue line nonsense and things like that is in a second. So that's, you know, what GB Studio can do out of the box. And we are going to use some of that to create our own, you know, mini level. So how do we do that? What's the workflow? I don't really want to work from quite all of GB Studio's stuff. I want to, you know, work from my own tile set, and in doing so, you know, be able to you know, show you how to like build some content here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to, first of all, if I am building something, what I would want to do is build my art. And what I use, you don't have to use this program. I highly recommend building something like you know, a tile set in a program called Sprite. Now, again, I talked about, you know, this is a prototyping process. It's simple. Should be able to do it really quickly. I'm going to make this tile set available in the files for the GB Studio project that I put with this thing. So you should be able to get it and then use it for your own uses. But it basically contains like a little sort of faux industrial looking ish house, like it's made of corrugated metal, because I can't stop myself from architecting. It has a cave, you know, so concave and convex corners with a little cave entrance. It has a little pathway tiles so that we can like maybe make a path and hint to the player with environment art. It has trees, some like sort of vaguely Zelda-ish trees that we can, build little forests out of. And then it has ledges for less severe delineations and some like grass decor and, rocks and little bushes and stuff. So, it's really basic, but it's also highly functional. So how do you build something like this? I'm not going to go through a whole Sprite tutorial. I actually have one on my channel that I'd be happy to link to. To give you the gist though, if I were to go to like new, and then I make, perfect, a new sprite, and it says sprite, but it'll function as a tile set. I'll make it something like 128 by 128. These are all in multiples of 8. So, and to tell you why, GB Studio, it understands it understands environments in multiples of like 8 tiles, in 8 tile chunks. So you want your stuff to be in like multiples of 8. So your gameplay sprites are always 16 by 16 right now. You can't really do 32 by 32s or 24s by 16s or whatever, unless you put some sprites next to each other and then like make them work together to animate. I've done it. It can look really nice. It's not easy right now with the engine. It's not a canned feature at the moment. But for a tile set, you don't really need to worry about that. You just need some multiple of 8. So I'm going to go 128 by 128. That should give us enough room. And then the rest of the settings are fine as is. I'll hit OK. And then I would get something like this. And then 2 things I'd want to do. I'd want to view my grid. So I'd go to View up here and Grid Settings and make sure that it's 8, 8. And then I'm just going to like 8 everything. And then I get 8 by 8 grid. And then that lets me like draw in, look at my grid as 8 by 8 chunks. The other thing I want to do, when you're working with GB Studio, you have to use the Game Boy Color palette. And now I'll also provide like a link to the GB Studio documentation where you can see some of these other limitations. I'm going to try to mention them. Just like Twine, one of the reasons I do like this engine for prototyping is that it seems like a lot of restrictions, but those restrictions keep you like focused on making a small thing. And, with prototyping, I like to keep it to like just get to the feature I want to prototype. So in this case, the feature might be story-based, navigation-based, conversation, quest, like fetch questy type, gameplay, things like that. So, this is a good thing to prototype those ideas with. Again, maybe even some combat, and there are, again, new combat features. We're not going to cover them today. But, you can also do Zelda combat in it as well. So I'm going to hit, go up here to the upper left-hand corner where there's these 4 buttons. And I'm going to click, the right one, which is a sort of like menu button. And I'm going to go down to Load Palette. And then what I do is I navigate to, ideally what you'd do is you'd go to the GB Studio Docs, documents, and that is where you would find, like they have a color palette for you to download that for a sprite. So I downloaded it. I'm going to load it. And there we go. I have 4 colors. This like sort of obnoxious lime neon green is transparency. So if you're ever doing like a character sprite like this guy, see the transparent part is the lime green. And then things to know is that this like semi-dark green here, you can only use that in environment art. You cannot use it in sprites. Sprites can only be the lightest color, the darkest color, and then the mid-tone. It can never be like the dark tone, because that's the Game Boy. So when I work in my tile sets, I would draw something like Oops, I'm on the paint tool. Hit B for brush. It actually has a lot of the same shortcuts as like Photoshop, so that's kind of nice. You know, maybe I'll draw a rock. And because I'm working in environment art, I'm gonna oops. You know, maybe this is on like this normal green color backdrop. So I'm gonna then paint bucket, brush, you know, maybe that's the rock, and then highlight, and there we go. Like that's a tile, you know, and then I could, sometimes you make bigger tiles. So if I, you know, you can see here, like I have a 16 by 16, you know, some 16 by 16 rocks, 8 by 8 little like environment chunks, straight parts, you know, corner parts, you know, 16 by 16 little bushes, big 32 by 32 trees. So, you know, build yourself a set that has flexibility, and again, make sure you have like concave and convex corners, basically like corners like this and corners that stick out like that, so that you can, you know, lay out your environment nicely. When you do want to actually export, what you would do is you'd click File, Export, and then and then you'd click Export. You tell it where to go. So, you know, you'd say like, all right, I want to go here, and then you put in the file name, and you click Export, and then what you'd get is a, okay, I'm gonna show you here. Oops, wrong one. Tile sets. So what you'd get, you can see my A-Sprite file, and then you'd see like, here's the tile set image that it created. Oop, super tiny, because it's 16 by 16, or 128 by 128. So yeah, there it is. And what do I do with this now? Well, the next part of the pipeline is a piece of software called Tiled. Now, this is not the only map editor out there. There's lots of different map editors, but I like Tiled, so I'm using it. So what Tiled is it's just a thing that you can load up your tile set and then use that as a palette to paint environments on. And then what we do is we'd save those environments as an image, and then we plop those images into GB Studio and add collision and things like that. So Tiled it's really good. You know, it's used in a lot of places. It's got exporters for all kinds of, you know, all kinds of game engines, including Unity. So, you know, it's a nice thing to learn how to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up my copy of Tiled, and I will show you how to create a new, where's my stuff? Boop, 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 boop. Well, it doesn't matter. Okay, open project. Ah, so big, this window. GDC, masterclass, demo files, art assets, maps. Or maybe I should just, there you are, see? Here's a good map. That one's kind of big. I'll just use the town. What the heck? Now why isn't it showing the town? Oh, there you are, town. Hi, town. You were lost, but I found you. So here's how to use Tiled. So if I well, let me actually create a new project, a new map. So I go to File, New Map, and it's going to ask me a few things. So I'm gonna, orientation orthogonal is fine, but you can do isometric if you want to. Not for this, but for other things. So we're not gonna do that. So for fixed, the Game Boy screen, because we're using GB Studio to prototype, is 160 by 144 pixels. So this matters because, you know, for the majority of what I'm going to do this in like stock Game Boy size. Now, for this town, for example, it's actually 2 screen widths by 2 screen height. So everything is a multiple of this 20 tiles by 18 tiles. You know, GB Studio or Tiled wants you to do the width and height in like what the tile measurements are. So in this case, it's first of all, you need to set the tile size. So I set the tile size over here on the right to 8 by 8 because that's what Game Boy sees as a tile is 8 by 8. And what we drew our tile in is 8 by 8. And then map size is 20 by 18. So that's one Game Boy screen, and then you multiply out from there. So I'm just going to do 1. And then it would have me save, and I'm just going to call this GDC Masterclass Tutorial Town, or Tutorial Map. So then it gives you a blank map. So what do I do with this blank map? Well, I click in the lower right-hand corner. This is where my tile set is, where my palette essentially goes, my palette of level paint. So I click New Tile Set, and there's a lot of stuff here. I don't know what all this stuff is. That's okay. We'll just click this button that says Browse. And then I could load that one. That's a really good tile set. But I'm going to load so many folders. Masterclass, demo files, assets, tile sets, bam. So all this is filled out, hooray, don't have to do anything. And if I click OK, then it loads it here. And so you have separate zoom drop downs for this one up here is for the tile set, and this one here is for your map. But I'm just going to go down to 550. You can also control minus and plus. So I'm going to go and I'm going to make my tile set 550. Actually, no, that's terrible on this screen. 200. There we go. That's okay. And the way this works is that I just click a tile. So if I click, you know, this little tile down here, and I can start painting and be like level design. Oh, or I can't because it's hard to make letters out of tiles. Nope, I'm not going to even try. I made the word level. But, you know, I have a few tools here, and I really only use a few. I have, like, this one up here. It's kind of hard because the icons display very small. But this one is a stamp brush. It's B, and, you know, that lets me do my normal painting. Terrain brush, don't really use that for this. Don't really use that. I do use the paint bucket, so I can paint bucket. And then there's also an eraser if I'm like, oh, no, that was a bad idea. Then there's also this one over next to the eraser to the right of it is rectangular select, and that's like my marquee tool. I can take that and then I can control X and then control V, and then, you know, I can move stuff around. So basically to move stuff, you marquee it, you cut, so control X, or copy, control C it, and that will basically turn it into, when you use the brush, I guess copy doesn't really work. Oh no, I guess no, I can copy, and then if I paste, then it becomes my brush. So yeah, Control C, Control V, see, now I have brush. But I use that in case I ever like make a goof and need to move stuff around, or if I, you know, make one tree and then not have to remake a bunch of trees. So, you know, I made this lawn. Now what I can do is I can go into my palette and I can hold down to select multiple tiles, and then I can be like, boop, tree. Or I can go and do, this is a little complicated to use, this forest thing, but if you get a hang of it, so I usually like, you can do that, and then I start with like maybe stamping down one, and then I take this like bottom 32 by 16 section, and then I can like boop, boop. Like I said, it's a little complicated, but if you get the hang of it, you can actually like fill some space pretty quickly. I should mention too that Game Boy does have like one restriction regarding tiles. You can't just like have every tile of a map be this like gorgeous bespoke tile. You know, like you can't have every tile on the screen be unique. I think there's a limit of what, 192 or something like that on the screen at one time, so it behooves you to use like repeating textures like this. I very rarely, if I'm being honest, I very rarely run into this limitation. It's only when I'm doing like really big sections of terrain, like multiple screens worth of stuff, and I'm making it very busy. But if you do have like a concise tile set, you're not going to run into this very often. And again, we're prototyping. You know, this is probably even more like artistically nice than you need for prototyping. You know, stick figures and you know, like little basic bushes with, you know, less shading than that would probably suffice for prototyping. But I wanted you to have something nice to work with. So, and then same thing here, like how do we do cave walls? If we wanted to do cave walls, you know, we might do something like this. And then, oops, let me do this. Let me start from the corner. It's a little off center, but you know, I would do that, paint with like the top edge, and then paint over here. But you see, like I have the left, right, etc. Walls, bottom wall, oops. But see, I made my tile set in it. The workflow here, tile set in Sprite, and then use that tile set as a palette to make your happy little maps in tiled, and then I'm gonna get this like center map here. I'm gonna use the paint bucket to paint bucket off that, and you're not playing nice. So I'm actually gonna take my brush stamp tool and just paint it around. This looks terrible, but you know, I'm just doing a demo. We're not doing the whole thing. I would normally space out the surface detail way more. But see, now we can make a cave, and then if we wanted to, even we could like put a big thing in the middle. So I'm using the like little white lines that I put on the top of this to use as a guide. And then sometimes you're actually also going to find that you So I put a little thing in the middle. Sometimes you might find that like, oh no, I don't have a tile that I want in my tile set when you're doing this. The solution to that is either you can like go back and edit your tile set in Sprite and then save the file, and it'll automatically be loaded here in tiled and you're good to go. Or if you go and, like I've done this before, where maybe I load another tile set, and let's go do that. So if I load the one that I'm using for my game Kudzu, where did I put that thing? Tile sets, the tile set. Okay, so I can load another tile set, and then I can be like, you know, oops, too big, can't navigate. Let's put this Kudzu covered truck in the corner here and make this pathway thus unnavigable. Boom. See, I can combine tile sets if I needed to. So that's a neat thing you can do. So if I want to export this, what do I do and get it into GB Studio? Well, you go File. So you have options here, but usually you just export as image, and that brings this up. Now, this has caused the first time I did it, this caused some problems for me. And it has this weird behavior where, I'm sure there's a use for it, but for this application, I don't understand the use of it. Again, I know there's probably some use for it if you're doing different kinds of tile sets. But for this, because it's so size restrictive to 160 by 144, you want it to be precisely that, or else Game Boy Studio is not going to like it. In that case, what you do is you, how long have I been doing this? 37 minutes. So what you do is you would go to, so you can turn off use current zoom level, but what I actually prefer to do, because what this will do is this will actually export it at 160 by 44 times 4, because we're looking at it in 400% zoom. So that's bad. So what I'm actually going to do, and what I do before every time I export, is I go down to my zoom level at the bottom here, and I set it to 100, and I do export as image, so that it will absolutely, you know, export as, and I'll even, why don't I export this? It'll export at the right size. So that's tiled. You know, a quick overview of usually like how I use tiled in the context of this exercise. So that takes us finally to GB Studio. Now again, we've got our, you know, sample project here, and like I said, I usually start from a new file, which I then, you know, for 1.0 for this exercise. So I would do the same. But what I'm also going to provide for this, and I'm going to go to File, Switch, Project, and that's how you don't save. I'm not going to save. And what I'm going to do is go to Level Design Demo 2, because that's the one that I've opened, like, to rip apart so that I could show you how to put it back together. Because I've got my other sample one in front of me on my other screen, and I don't want to blow that up less, because I actually debugged that one. So yeah, first of all, I'm going to get rid of boop and boop. No, wait, do I want to get rid of that one? Yeah, let's get rid of that one. All right, so we're gonna build one of our quests here, and then I'm actually gonna get rid of these rocks. Okay, so what are we looking at? So we're looking at, so this is the scene that's going to be in the, I'm actually going to save. I'm going to label this O2 so I don't panic and think, nope. Jeez. Going to label that O2 so that I don't panic and think that I broke my good copy. Or my, non-tutorial copy. You get what I mean. So what I have here is, I have it, and what I've done is I've deleted a quest. I've deleted a quest that I've written where two brothers are playing hide and go seek, but one of them is lazy and doesn't want, sends you out to go find his brother, and the brother, spoiler alert, is going to be like, that bum. No, I won't go home. Tell him to come find me himself. So really gripping drama. So what I'm going to do is first, I want to show you how to load a scene. And to do that, what I'm going to do in the GB Studio window, I got to make sure that I'm in game world. So when you're in the game world, you have 4 or 5 options here. One of them is your normal pointer that lets you select stuff, and I'll explain what all of these little, strings and things are. Actually, the way this displays makes it kind of a nice scaffold step up from Twine in a way, because the levels, the scenes in GB Studio actually kind of operate like Twine passages in a lot of ways. So it's a good way to think about them as, again, sort of like level up from doing a Twine. This is visual, but also has some gameplay logic to it that it turns into like a neat other kind of prototype. So yeah, if I want to load a scene, so I'm going to load a scene, I'm going to add, and when I hit the add button, which is just a big plus sign, I have 3 options. I have actor, trigger, and scene. So we're going to stick with scene right now. And what that's going to do is it's going to make a big box, and I'm going to boop, put that big box there. And what that does is it's going to default load a background. Which background? I don't know. I know it has some logic, but I don't know what that logic is. So what it does is I'm going to go background, and I'm going to click that. So this is on the right side of the screen. If you used Unity, this is like your inspector, is what's on the right side of the screen. So I'm going to click background, click here in my little scene inspector with my scene selected. And this will give me a drop down of every background that I've loaded into the project. And I'll explain what that means in a second. But I'm going to do, which of these? Is it you? Yes, it is you. So I'm going to do Forest 04. Now how was that there? Well, let me explain. Let me take a step back. When I make a GB Studio project, see, here are my GB Studio projects that you've seen. You've seen Level Design Demo, Demo 2, and the one that I opened up and made a new scene of with the template is this one live tutorial. But we're in Design Demo 2, so we're going to go into this one. And what's in here is there's your actual project. So if I click this, from if I go to File, Switch Project, or Open from GB Studio, then I would click that GBS proj file. But I also get this Assets folder. And in the Assets folder are backgrounds, music, sprites, and UI. What's in UI are letters, like ASCII letters, a cursor, emotes, and a frame. Now, what's neat about these is that this is like the text box, the font, and like the little cursor that appears when you're selecting things on the menu, like New Game or Continue. So you can change all that. Not that we care about that for this, it's just neat. What we care about is backgrounds. So if I go into backgrounds, this is where I load all the stuff that I make in tiled. So what I usually do when I make my stuff out of tiled, I'll have like an art folder for myself, and I'll call it usually something like maps. And oh, this is a good example. I can take, so here's that thing that we exported, the masterclass tutorial map with the kudzu covered truck. And if I Control C, copy, and then go to my So this is my art folder that I've made for myself. And this is my backgrounds folder in my GB Studio project. Where'd you go? You're ruining the tutorial windows. If I hit Control V in there, then this will appear, and then it is in my, there you are. So now it's in my GB Studio project. Let's keep this here. Spatially, it makes no sense because I don't know, you know what? Maybe these guys just live in just a really weird house that's actually a cave with an old crappy truck in it. So that'll be their house for this go. In the other one, it's just a nice little house. But in this one, let's use the thing we made. So cool. What do I do with this now? Well, what I'm going to do is first things first, I'm going to add collision. And to do that, it's really simple. So I have my arrow up here. We already used the add button. I'm on the buttons in the upper left-hand corner, by the way. Okay, I am recording. That's excellent that I'm recording. Sometimes I always want to check. But so I'm in my add button. Below that is eraser. You know, that will erase things that we add. And then below that is collisions. Below collisions is colorize. We don't need to worry. No, we don't need to worry about that. I'm not going to mess with it because that's like, again, visual. That's if you want to create a Game Boy Color compatible game. We're using this as a prototyping tool. And I realize that I've, walked you through a process that seems very involved, but if you kind of keep it simple, you're not really focusing on a lot of color or visual splash. You can make a very simple tile set or use one like I've provided and build things out in tiled little rooms for yourself. Like you saw, if you got a good tile set, it doesn't take you that long. And then, you can get it in here and just start making maps right away. So I'm going to hit this little brick wall thing here. These are all different collision types. So most of these ones that are not the red one are really more for if you're doing a platformer in this with the platformer tools. But we're sticking to, again, a sort of top-down RPG world to prototype, quests and things like that. So we're going to stick to just this red one. And all I do is kind of like in tiled almost, you have an 8x8 brush and you can do a 16x16 brush. But you usually don't need to do that. Because I usually just trace the outside surfaces of things. But so I'm just going to paint where my collision will be. So, and then I just do this. But you want to put it on anything you don't want the player to go through. And we're going to block off. Maybe I'll just put the guy there. I'll just block it off. But we'll put the guy there in the way, and then that way it won't be a door. Or it won't communicate that it's a door. Even though I drew a door. But we're not going to worry about that right now. Cool. So that's neat. Now what? Well, now we need to be able to go here. Because if I were to load the project, this would be in the project, but I couldn't actually go inside of it. I should mention that if you are drawing and you screw up, if I'm painting and then, oh God, what you do to fix it is if you just click on painted collision, it'll erase the collision. So you don't even have to go to the eraser. So let's actually be able to get here. And how do we do that? So what we do for that is we are going to, and I'll show you what it is. I'm going to go back to my arrow. And we already have one set up in the town. But the house that I usually go to is this one that I'm waving my mouse around on. And that's the one that I have connected to this brother's house. So what do? Well, you see this orange thing in here. That's a trigger. And we are going to lay that on top of our art in the place that we want to function like a door. And so cool, it's a trigger. What does it do? Well, see those blue lines? Oh. If I click on this, the blue lines are connections between triggers. And that's because these triggers have a script on them that says on trigger, change scene. And then you just like tell it which scene you want to go to. So this is where we are going to do some light scripting in the engine. So I'm going to click on our trigger here, this guy, and I'm going to go to, actually it already has add scene, but I'm going to get rid of it. So to add an event, so let me explain. In the inspector, when you're looking at an object, you're going to usually get, so let's select this NPC. You're going to get that object's name and its location in X and Y, and that's in tile measurements, not in pixel measurements. And what its sprite sheet is, so if we want this guy to not be this guy, and we want it to be a dog, I can change it to be a dog. Well, let's keep him a dog. That's kind of fun. So, you know, we have that, and then movement speed. So if he were to like walk around, if we were going to add, you know, a script for him to walk around, it's like movement speed is how fast would he walk. Collision group, we're not going to worry about that for this one, but this is really useful if you are doing combat. So it's basically like if I get hit by collision 2, maybe collision 2 is your enemy group, and, you know, make stuff happen when you're hit by collision 2. That's a good, it's like a tag. I think of it like tags in, you know, Unity or something like that, where, you know, it'd be like tag enemy. So collision groups, I kind of think of them like tags. You can also add notes. I don't usually do that. Navigation town. And then, you know, you basically, usually on objects, you have 3 tabs here. And these are like building scripts for different events. So one is on interact. That's like when you walk up to it and hit A and talk to it. That's on interact. And that's what most of our stuff in this demo is. On init means like what does it do when the scene starts? So that would be where you like set up something in your scene. Like at the beginning of the scene, it is going to play this animation to make a little cutscene, or this series of animations, or it's going to, you know, load the scripts in this object to let you, you know, use the sword or something like that. And then on update is, you know, your typical every frame what it does. We're not really going to mess with update too much. We're mostly going to stick to on interact because it's the simplest for tutorial purposes. But, you know, you can see, like, again, you can make whole games in this. We're just going to use it for like quest prototyping. So when triggers have one type of event. They have on trigger. So what happens when you walk into the trigger? So again, you can see this is really powerful. It's a trigger. It's a trigger like any other level editor. So if I'm going to add an event, and then I have all these events, we're not going to talk about what they are right now. You know, again, there's documentation. You should go check it out. But we're just going to do change. And that brings up, there's fade change settings. So if we wanted it to like fade to black instead of fade to white, that's what that is. But we're going to go scene, change scene. And because this is our most recently loaded scene, it actually defaults to this. See the little do bubble? But, you know, we could click scene and choose a different scene if we wanted to. But we're going to, this is nice. We're going to call this Ugly House, because they live in a cave with a broken down truck in it. So that's neat. So what is this little bubble here for? Well, what this little bubble is for is that this is where your character will show up when they enter that scene. So if I just have it here, they're going to appear there. So I'm going to position it here in the doorway. I don't want to position it here at the bottom, and I'll tell you why in a second. I'm going to position it one tile up. And then by default, I think the character will face like forward, but we want it to look like it's just walked in. So at the bottom of this script are 4 little arrows, and that tells us like which direction your player character will be facing when they walk in. So we're going to face up. And you see the little arrow is there. Now, if we were to go play this, let me show you. Let me see how long this is going to take to build. So build, FYI, is the upper right-hand corner. Cool. Some of it's cached. That's great. See what I did there? Going to start a new game. There's our little default player character. You have a house. Cool. See, and we can walk around and we can interact. Look how fast we did all this. We're level designing. Okay, their house stinks. Can't even get through it the other way and have a nice loop. I love loops in level design. Okay, cool. Let's leave. Wait. Oh no. What did we do? So let me explain. Triggers are not two-way. So what we need to do is, plus add trigger, and then so it gives us this, and you see the little orange brush, and then I want to put it at the bottom of this door so that it looks like you actually go through the door when you hit the trigger. And then I'm going to hit, so here you see width and height. I'm going to change its width to 2. And see, that makes a little trigger like this. And then I put it there. And then I do the change scene. And I could pick it from the drop down. The other thing that I can do that's kind of neat is if I click and drag its little like icon, I can actually just drag it into another scene. And I'll put it right in front of the door so that, and then I'll hit the down arrow. And if I build, this should be near instantaneous because we already built. The engine also has a cache build function now, which just automatically runs. And the benefit of that obviously is that like you don't have to completely rebuild it every time you're prototyping. So it's very fast at prototyping, except for like the first time. But usually if you're making prototypes, you don't make something so big that it's gonna. Okay, so we can walk around, can still collide with stuff, and then we can get out of there. And see? Okay, cool. So let's build a quest, and that should do it. So what I want to do now is first we need to build our quest giver. And I'm going to make an plus actor, and I'm going to put this actor here. Because remember, I want him blocking the little doorway. Now, as much as I love quest giver cats, we already have a cat in another quest. So I'm going to do NPC 002. And NPC 002 is this guy with just kind of a receding hairline. So what we're going to do with him is I'm going to not change much about him. So I'm going to write some logic for him. So, we already did some basic stuff with like adding the change scene function. So I'm going to add a few like more logic-based functions. And I already have some variables built, so I'm going to use those variables, but I'll show you how to like work with variables here while we do this. So I'm going to add an event, and the event is going to be if. And you see the selections are, I'm going to do an if variable is false. And when you get that, you get this nice little like grid of, oops, okay, cool. So you see I also can like pull this out and, if you like it to be a little bigger. So I get this nice little like setup here. Color coded too, so that if you're working on like lots of nested if statements, it's easy to work with. But I'm going to, so if I click on this drop down, you see that, so there's about 500 global variables in a whole project. That actually might seem like well, depending on how you're thinking of your projects, it might seem like a lot, it might seem like not enough. There's ways to make that bigger. But again, that's a little more advanced for this tutorial. I just wanted you to know that. But you see you can get 10 locals, 2 temporary variables, and then lots and lots of globals. So I've built some globals. What you do to like build a new one is you just find one that doesn't have a name, like variable 19 here, and we could call it like demo variable, but that's how you'd, and then you just like tell the engine what that variable meant. But we're going to look at found brother, and if I go to the drop down for the variables, if I click or if I type in found, I can get that. So we're going to use that. And then we're going to create an event in the if it's false called display. And we're going to get the display dialog event. And again, this is why it's a great test, a great prototyping tool for quests and RPG stuff and like social gameplay. So I'm going to say something like my brother and I are playing hide and seek ... Now every time you do this, you need to, every time you have like a new text box, you need to make another display dialog event, which seems like a pain, and it is. So instead of going in and doing display, which is monotonous, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this drop down arrow here, which is not a drop down thing. That's what this one over here is. I'm going to do this one on the right, and I'm going to copy event, and then I'm going to paste event, click that arrow again, and now I can paste event after, and I get another one. Also, you might see this little thing that says add avatar. That's if you want to add a little character portrait, like a 16 by 16 character portrait. So I'm going to do this, but I'm too tired to keep looking. Now, there is limitations on the amount of text you can have in one text box. We are doing this on Game Boy. Remember, it actually makes Game Boy games. So everything that I'm talking about in terms of limitations are because it's Game Boy. But being so limited actually is why, again, I like it as a prototyping tool, because it doesn't let you get out of hand. Paste event after. Can you go find him? He doesn't say please because he's a lazy bum. And can you go find him and report back here? And then we're going to do else. So if found brother is true, we're going to use just this automatically made else portion. And then, so here I'm going to make another display because I've got to get the event like kicked off. What? He won't come back until I find him. Paste event after. Okay. I'll get around to it. ... And then, oops. Paste event after. Quest 3 completed. Okay. So what did I just do? Well, so then the other thing I can do is I'm going to, come on mouse, get over here. Now I'm going to add an event, and I'm going to set variable to true. So I had already set a series of quest variables, quest 1, 2, 3, and they're all set to false by default. So I'm going to set the quest variable to true. So I'm going to go quest and quest 3. Now again, why I'm working with, if I type in quest again, why I'm working with the default project, there's already quests 1 through 6. I didn't build 6. It's just that the demo project for 1.0 comes with like a set of 6. Their game logic has 6 quests. So I just, I deleted all the logic for quests like 4, 5, and 6, and I have quest 1 going, or 1, 2, 3 going. So what does that do? So basically, if I play my game and I pause it, then what it actually does is whenever it pauses, it goes through this quest check, and it checks like whether quest 1 is true or false, and if it's true or false, it changes this sprite that is like a checkbox to the frame of animation that has the check on it. And then what I have for that is that I have this old man up here, and I was talking about nested true things. He checks, is quest 1 true? If that is true, then is quest 2 true? Is quest 3 true? And then if all of those are true, then he says like, you're worthy, and then he gets out of your way. I'll let you, again, I'm releasing these files with the completed project with the actual, with the video on itch.io. So you will be able to like get in there and dig around. So that way you have like something to dissect. I just wanted to show you some of these basics. So, okay, we have this brother set up. He says 2 different things depending on whether a variable is true or false. So now we want to make his brother so that, now we want to make the hiding brother so that we can complete our quest. Where are we on time? We're at 1 hour and 6. That's about what I anticipated for this. So we're going to make a scene. I'm going to pop it in here, and I'm going to make that Forest 04. And I'm going to do my collision thing. Nope, there we go. Remember, if you goof up with the collision, just click again on the thing you painted and it will go away. Oh, and then I want to do this. And then I'm actually going to copy this guy. So I'm going to, because they're twin brothers, so I might as well use the same sprite over again. So I'm going to select my arrow. I'm going to pick this guy, and I'm going to Control C and then Control V, and you see my cursor turns into this little plus sign with a purple box. That's where they're going to sit. The colliders for all these things are like 2 by 1. Because it's supposed to be kind of like 3-dimensional. So based on the projection, so there we go. I put little brother there, and let's see what he does. All right, so one of the nice things about copying is that I already have these text boxes set up. So if found brother is false, he's gonna say, what? My brother sent you? That lazy loaf. I think it's oaf, but we're going to have him call him a loaf like he's bread. It's getting cold out here. So why doesn't he just go home? Because we haven't animated him to go home, so he's stuck. Tell him to stop cheating and find me. Okay, and then now what we're going to do is we're going to true and variable set to true and found brother, which is variable 2. So variable 2 is now true, and then else what he's going to do is, so basically we want, this is almost like a polish thing, but we're going to have him say like, go, so if found brother is true, he's going to be like, why are you talking to me? Like, go and tell my brother. Tell that he has to find me himself. And then oh, whoops. Oh, I think I have some leftover logic in the, okay, well, I'll have to get rid of that. So I think that's all we need to do here. Let me get rid of that. If you do want to spice up these a little bit, you can also do this. Emote bubble. And then, like, you know, we can make him angry. Okay, so let's play this and see what happens. Oh, no, wait a minute. I forgot to put one more thing, or else we're not going to be able to get to him. Actor, trigger, or no, we're going to plus trigger, and then we're going to make it height 2, and then change scene. And we're going to take you to the town. Where's the town? Am I missing the town? Where is it? What do I call it? Town. Oh, I'm just going to click and drag over. And there we go. And then for this guy, I'm going to, he has a change scene. This, calling it a guy, you know, it has no gender. This scene. So then I'm going to make sure that I also set the change scene trigger that's on the right side of the town over here to, you know, arrow so that they form a loop. That way they can go back and forth. Now I'm going to save and build. Okay. So you can, FYI, if you swap out the logo screens and things like that, like you can add, it's already set up that you can get your like studio logo in there if you have a Game Boy size pixel painting of it. You know, that's what I did to get the title screen. I thought that it was at least nice. I didn't want to give everybody access to my studio splash screen, so you don't get that. But okay, see, and this one says, hey, don't you have that hero thing today? Talk to the old man in front of the northern cave. So that's like if you want to go do the full set of quests. So here, we're going to go talk to the brother first in his dumb cave house. My brother and I are playing hide and seek, but I'm too tired to keep looking. Can you go find him and report back here? So he'll always say that. We didn't give him like some other alternate dialogue. So we're going to leave. And remember, we set up the, you know, so we can go back and forth because we set that up. I can collide with things. Hooray, because we set up collision. Hey, look, there he is. What? My brother sent you. That lazy loaf. He's getting cold out here. Tell him to stop cheating and find me. Okay. So then, oh, and then we did the alternate dialogue if found brother is true. So watch what happens. Now he gets angry because we added the emote. So he has a little like anger emote, which is fun. Go on. Tell that bum he has to find me himself, which is kind of neat. So yeah, that's a simple polish that you can add. That's just sort of fun. Also, FYI, see, I made, like, I used little paths to have environment art indicate, like, ooh, there's something over here. So they kind of imply your walking paths, which is nice for level design. Okay, so then, remember, you know, quest 3 is not done yet because we've not reported back. So if that's pause. So then if I go talk to him, what? He won't come back till I find him. Okay, I'll get around to it. Quest 3 completed, and then if I hit pause, then haha, it is set. So then one more thing I wanted to show, not that it's really that difficult, but I kind of already showed it, but I want, you know, you don't only have to do, you know, things based on quests or fetching. You can also make puzzles, or again, combat. Like, you can do combat. I'm just not making it for this demo. There actually is a attack event, and then what it does is that it will, I don't want to set it up, but like, you know, it'll say like sprite sheet. That'll be the thing that like comes out, like the sword or what, a weapon or whatever, in this case a cat. You can hit things with your cat. Source, like, you know, what is the source of it? So it's probably like player or something like that. And then what does it hit? What does it collide with? So there is an attack script if you want to use it, you know, to build, again, more like quest adventure type logic. We're not going to do that. We're going to just kind of leave it as is. But a thing that we can do is... there we go. So if I click one of these rocks, it also has a really useful... so I'm going to Control-C and Control-V it, and I'm going to put it in this scene down here. So that's, again, how to copy-paste. But it has another useful script that is, if I go to Add Event, push, it's actor push away from player. And what that does is it's like a rock puzzle. And what's useful about this is if you want to, again, have, you know, if you want to play with puzzles and pacing, you know, which is what this is going to be used for in the GDC Masterclass context. You can set up simple puzzles with pieces like this. Again, this is why I like this as a prototyping tool, because it's got some actually like nice built-ins for puzzle design. Even if you don't ultimately want to do physics puzzles, you know, the idea of like, how do you lay out a world, and then you can build some simple puzzles to be like, this is where a puzzle would be. You could build a puzzle and you can get a sense of like, you know, is it nice when you have like combat puzzle, combat rest puzzle? You know, what does the player want to interact with in what order, and what feels good? Like, when do you want to rest? When do you want to have up moments, down moments? You know, you can test that stuff out with the pre-made pieces. So this is kind of nice. You know, I'm just going to do like Control-C, Control-V. Not that these are like, not that I'm claiming that these are great puzzles, or that I even built them the best way possible. I actually think one of these might have ended up being one way. But again, it's prototyping. It's not supposed to be perfect. So, you know, I can put these in a little formation. You have to push them aside to get through. But it is the idea of like, I can put that in there and be like, this is a puzzle, and not necessarily have to build out a full complex puzzle system. You can have it be kind of a stand-in, and, you know, have a player experience that like, you know, I'm making my brain work in this way. It also has a useful feature that's slide until collision if you want to do Zelda Link to the Past style like ice block puzzles. But yeah, so this showed you, you know, how to build a new project in this engine. The workflow for going from building a tile set, loading that tile set into the tiled map editor, exporting those maps, putting it into the GB Studio engine, and then what to do once you get there, and how to build simple, you know, dialogue and fetch-based quests, and then also, you know, use simple physics-based puzzles. So, you know, that should give you a good start to build, you know, some of your own stuff. Again, I'm going to release the demo, like the completed demo project that I've built, so that you can further dissect this and see, you know, maybe how to do more complex quests, nested quests where like you've got to complete a mini quest to get to the bigger quest, and then also how to have something test to make sure all the quests are completed. You can do that as well. So I hope you enjoyed this and found it informative. Thank you for watching the video, and have a great, you know, happy level design, everybody.